The last title will be announced in just a couple of months. 12.1 is just around the corner. We have hints what 12.2 will be about. So the real question now is, with all the evidence, who is going to be the final boss of this expansion? We actually have quite a few hints, but realistically, this final boss won't be the big bad, but just someone that will do something really bad that will transition us into Northrend that will trigger the big Titan return. Something really bad will happen, like Azeroth being transformed into the Void or the prison of Azeroth being broken, and someone is going to do this. Will this be a figure like Queen Azshara that has set up her return for the longest time, an actual old god that has made a pact in the ages past with Xal'atath, or someone entirely different? Let's look at everything we currently know. Imagine if you could have all your games in one place, not having to go to Battle.net, Steam, GOG, and just having everything all over the place. Play Tracker is the perfect solution. You not only organize everything in a single profile, but you also got unified achievements, you can see all your playtime in one place, and best of all, you got all your friends cross-platform. To top it off, there is a really cool quest and leveling system where you gain XP and levels to unlock features. So connect all your gaming profiles right now and create a free account on playtracker.net with my link below. So this is something I wanted to talk about since the start of Midnight, but seeing how the story still isn't fully culminating until now, it's really hard to say because literally no one had any idea where it could go. Literally, all we knew was that we could later go to Northrend, and that was kind of the whole thing. However, now things are developing. So to get straight to the point, we already know the campaign for 12.1 will be coming out very soon this summer, and BlizzCon is happening in just a few months with the Last Titan announcement, which means the story post 12.1 will be related to the Last Titan. Right now we know that 12.1 is the Amani patch and it is focused on the Isle off the coast of Zul'Aman. There are some hints that 12.1.5 could be related to the Forsaken, but 12.2 is going to be the culminating patch that transitions us into the Last Titan. However, I think this whole story will be different because if they announced the Last Titan now, just post 12.1, we already know what happens in Northrend, so 12.2 will be easy to see at that point. It's likely that it will also be announced on BlizzCon and what we can expect to see in 12.2 as well. It's almost certain right now that something really big, probably bigger than ever, is about to happen, and it will be a much bigger event than what we had at the end of the War Within. Now the reason for that being is that we know what happened with Xal'atath. Of course, the entire Sunwell thing was a dupe. We didn't really accomplish much despite us cleansing the Sunwell. Her entire goal, as we learned, was to distract us so that she can use the corrupted Darkwell to transport her Void army towards the center of the world. So this was confirmed at the end of 12.0.5. This means that this really is the main story that leads us into the Last Titan. The reality is that 12.1 is mainly just kind of like a filler Amani patch, and the 12.1 is probably won't be really too significant. It's going to be very likely concentrated on the larger Lordaeron area, which means 12.2 could be located directly in the core of Azeroth, potentially somewhere around Xal'atath, and something really big is going to happen there that is going to trigger the return of the Titans in Northrend. This leads us, of course, to speculate a few options on who could be the final boss, but the reality is that this final boss probably won't be all that important. So if you remember, like a year or two back, Chris Messer himself talked about Xal'atath and how she's unlikely to be defeated at the end of Midnight. She isn't really like a final boss figure. She is not like a Deathwing bit-bag type villain that we gotta catch and defeat, but she's just kind of like unraveling events left and right as the Harbinger, and we might defeat her at the end, but like she is going to trigger the big things like the Sword of Sargeras, the Titans, the whole ordeal. My opinion right now is that in 12.2 something really important is about to happen at the core of Azeroth, and that will have to trigger the actual return of the Titans. Keep in mind, so far the Titans are still on our side post Legion, so the evil hints that we have are only from the War Within, but these guys never arrived to Azeroth in person like how they will do now, so something really bad has to happen. The most realistic speculation right now is either Azeroth actually gets corrupted with the Void. The thing is, they always wanted to avoid this, the reason they created a world destroying mechanism in Ulduar that you may remember from Wrath, or we might actually free the World Soul from the Titan prison, which realistically, from their perspective, is probably an even worse deal. So for something like this to happen, either freeing Azeroth or the Void Corruption, something that has to happen will be big. But I don't think the final boss will really reflect such an event. It will just kind of be like a figure that is going to push things forward. So one of the early hints we have gotten, like even 6 months back, is that corrupted Illyria could be the final boss, which in my opinion is kind of the most boring version, but there is some reasoning behind this. One of the bits of evidence is that the Void team, like the music, has like a twisted Illyria theme to it, so by the music it would happen. And of course we had the event where she was defeated by Xal'atath, so the corruption is definitely possible, but as I said, this kind of seems cliche, it seems kind of boring. I think it is the most boring out of all the options. The second final boss option is Queen Azshara, that actually has quite a bit of evidence. Her return is all but imminent. You probably heard about this already, but since Dragonflight we've had that prophecy, the Naga prophecy, then literally everything from that prophecy already happened to the letter, and the final part of the prophecy said, once all this comes to pass, our queen will return. Well, just right now in Quotalas we got a whole bunch of Naga farming energy for something, which you could probably guess what. So Azshara returning as the final boss makes sense, or just as a figure for later down the line. I've talked about this, she might not necessarily have to be a one-off villain, but her return is all but confirmed. The only discussion is whether Azshara will be just another servant of Xal'atath and the Void, or whether she will kind of be an independent agent, whether she will do her own thing. For someone as important and arrogant as Azshara, I can't really see her being just like a mindless drone of Xal'atath, but we just have kind of nothing to work with right now, so we can only speculate. Now, the last, and in my opinion the most interesting possibility, is something I've recently talked about a lot, and that is the old god N'Zoth, and in my opinion the most interesting option. So just to very quickly sum up the evidence, I've got full videos on this if you want this in detail, but there is some pact with Xal'atath and N'Zoth that has been ongoing for thousands of years, and we still don't know what the full extent of the pact is. Second hint is that N'Zoth apparently built something in Xal'atath, and we have no idea what it was, but he really pissed off Xal'atath and she had to attack him, so this is likely related to the World Soul. Now, Xal'atath was the Black Empire capital, and while we visited it back in BFA, there was just kind of like a vision. We never found out the real location, the so-called sunken city that was probably buried underground, very likely where Xal'atath is going to right now with her Void army. To me, this makes the most sense that Xal'atath and the actual location of the prison of the World Soul is probably next door, and it's possible that we could go to Xal'atath as the finale of this expansion. Now, the real evidence is that we data mined a Void version of N'Zoth, like an actual model in the game a few months back, and now in preparation for 12.1, we got the Twilight Scammer guys serving Masters after they were abandoned by Xal'atath, and them trying to resurrect Kitix, the old god Catraxi general that they seem to be trying to dig out, that is actually confirmed to be buried under Zulaman. To me, this kinda seems like a small setup for the main story that will happen in 12.2. By this possibility, I could see N'Zoth being the final boss, which some might find like recycling content, but in my opinion, I think it could be very interesting, because the time we defeated N'Zoth was weird. I mean, it was constantly like some weird timeline, some vision, but we never actually went to the true location of his prison. It could be possible that Xal'atath legit frees him from his true location, and then we could fight an actual old god, not like the previous version we fought in the past, but like full-on old god. So the gist of it is, we have a few possibilities, like few possible figures lined up as the final boss of Midnight, but realistically, none of them are probably going to be all that important. It will just kind of be like a transition for the Last Titan, and really, the final boss of the saga will happen at the end of the Last Titan as well, like the real final boss that we are kind of used to with regular expansions. However, someone like N'Zoth could turn out to be really interesting if he really is the final boss of Midnight. Thanks for watching. Check out how likely it is that Northrend will be shattered and changed in the Last Titan by clicking on the screen, and subscribe to my brand new Witcher lore channel that I recently opened by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time!